Welcome to Strong by Nature, your portable campfire sessions for living strong, balanced, and connected the grizzly way. Today I want to talk about working with your hands, building, cooking, gardening. For me, it's more than just a hobby. It's heritage, it's therapy, it's how I stay grounded in a world that moves too fast. So, woodworking is in my blood. My grandfather, my father's father, was a carpenter. His brothers were carpenters. A lot of their sons were carpenters. So down our little line, my dad's little line, I'm I'm the only one. None of my cousins, none of my dad's brothers were actually carpenters or nothing. Just me. None of my cousins. I'm the only builder. But that whole side of the family, there's heaps. My grandfather was a missionary. He built houses and schools and shit in Papua New Guinea. So I always grew up around woodworking. My grandfather passed away when I was quite young, so my dad inherited all of his old woodworking tools and fucking machinery and everything. So from a young age, we had all of like our garage was a mini workshop, and my dad built our family home. He had help from his father at the time, but he did a lot of the work that he could himself. And then there was just always projects. He built this incredible dining table that they still have, this massive wall unit. Like any little things around the house, my dad would build. A lot of our games and toys as kids, like every little boy wants a toy gun or a toy sword or something like that. Mine were all just made from scrap bits of wood that my dad had just knocked together for me, and I'd watch him do that. And then once it broke and he didn't want to make me another one, I was like, well, sweet, I watched you do it, I know how it works. We had this big, it's called a bandsaw. So it's a picture like a conveyor belt, two big wheels with a band running through it, and there's saw blades on that, and so that runs through this table, and you can cut all sorts of curves and whatever you want with that thing. My dad used to go nuts if he heard me switch that on, and so I worked out that I could spin the wheel by hand. And so while my dad was inside, I could spin it by hand, and he couldn't hear it going. It took ages, but I could do my little cuts and I could make my little things. And one day, and I've still got the scar, I'm looking at it right now, I opened up the side of my pinky finger on my left hand, and I'm screaming, and I run inside and tell my dad, and he's asking me what happened, and I told him I was playing with the saw, and he smacked my ass and told me that it's my own stupid fault anyway. But my point is, like, we grew up working with our hands, making things, watching my dad and my family members working with their hands. So yeah, my dad's not a builder, but he built shit. When we moved to Hamilton, he obviously had to have a contractor build the house for him, but he did as much of that work as he could. The stuff that didn't have to be actually certified, he did it himself. He laid all the block work for the foundation in the basement, and I was like 11 years old. I was carrying blocks around for him as he did all this shit working in the sun. And the carpenter come through and did all the stuff he had to do. We moved into the house before it was finished. My dad lined all the walls. He did all the tiling. He did anything that didn't need to be fucking signed off. My dad did that. So I grew up watching this super handy guy. So obviously I get towards the end of my school years and I'm starting to fuck around a little bit, and my dad says, look, you know what, I'm not paying for you to finish school, go and get a trade. And so that's what I did. I started plastering, and I got about a year into that apprenticeship, and I was like, fuck, like I'm not doing another 3 years of this. Like I already know how to do it. I can do it with both hands. So I switched over to a building apprenticeship. And so that's what I did for a long time. That was my background for a long time. And look, I'm not the world's neatest, tidiest carpenter. I've found my own style. When we had the coffee shop in Morena, like I built a lot of the furniture with scrap wood that we were being donated, old pallets, and the beauty of working with this old bent sort of stuff is you can relax a little bit. It's never going to look perfect anyway, so it doesn't matter if your cuts aren't perfect. It doesn't matter if shit doesn't line up. It doesn't matter if a screw splits it somewhere, because there's already fucking splits and shit in it anyway. So I just really fell in love with this idea of recycling, repurposing, taking an old cabinet that was already fucked up anyway and just fixing it up a bit, sanding it back, giving it a new paint, and yeah, just working with old recycled rough timber. So woodworking isn't the only thing I want to talk about with working with my hands. Gardening is the next little thing that's become a massive obsession hobby and that for us lately. So my grandfather, my mum's father, and my mum both had massive veggie gardens when I was a kid. So we grew up with fresh produce on hand. It was always seasonal, and so I I've always had that understanding and that connection with fresh fruit and veggies, and it's only later on in life that I've got into it now more because we wanted to give Sol something different with her early education here. My brother and my sister-in-law, they grow probably 80 to 90% of what they eat off their land. They've got a little lifestyle block just outside of Hamilton. They've raised cattle and sheep and chickens and shit over the years, and they've also got a massive veggie patch. They preserve heaps of their stuff. They're drying excess fruit and vegetables, but they use fucking everything. And that's something that when we moved back to New Zealand, spending time out, I'll call it a farm. It's not really, but like for all senses of the word, we'll call it a farm. So we used to spend time out there on the weekend, like hanging out with them in the veggie patch, watching all the little things they were working on, and it was just fucking incredible to see. Inspiring to a point to being like, well, fuck, anybody can do this, but at the same time, we're like, we don't want to go that far with it either. Like, if we can grow a big percentage of what we're eating, awesome. But now our garden project in Ecuador, it was obviously inspired by them, but it was more as well about giving Sol something different with her early education. When we first, sorry, there's a lot of noise in the neighborhood. We get a lot of the beautiful background, birds and fucking shit like that, but we do get a lot of people driving around like morons. So where was I? Yes, Sol's early education. So we weren't sure what we were going to do with her in terms of daycare when we first moved here, because it's super expensive and it's only a few hours at a day. So we were like, we can't really justify that. So we were like, let's just start teaching her about some different shit. So she's been outside with me most days, building little planter boxes and growing different things, planting seeds and watering them. So she's seeing what we saw early on in our childhood of, like the stuff you throw these little things in the ground, they turn into a little green shit, and then it grows a bit more, and then boom, you've got food you can start eating. And so the next thing is cooking. That's another thing I like to do with my hands, another little craft I have. So I've been obsessed with that for a long time, but it's been something that has never been like learning professionally. It's just been an experiment, like I just enjoyed the idea of cooking something. All of our meals as kids were home cooked. Mum cooked dinner every night. Dad would cook sometimes and it was shit, so after a while we just, we talked him out of stopping doing that for us. But Mum always cooked our meals for us, our dinners, our baking, all of our treats we had as kids at home was all made by my mum. So there's always been this obsession with being like, shit, I love the idea of creating some food, creating something with my hands. So I'm not really a recipe follower. I like to look at a recipe to see what I'm supposed to put into it and get like rough like sizes and everything, but I also like to play around with the flavors myself, to actually taste things. And not as often now, but early on, like when me and Belle first got together, early on, it was pretty hit and miss. Like sometimes a meal would be good, sometimes it was like, oh, there's too much salt, it's missing this, it's not very deep. I'm getting a lot better with it now, but it's because of the way I cook, like I've got the stirring spoon or whatever it is that I've got there, but I've always got a little teaspoon next to me, and I picked that up. We lived with a chef when we lived in Perth for a while, so I used to pick his brains. I used to just love sitting there watching him cook and looking at the way that he was doing things. And then more recently, where we were living in Hamilton for a while, we were living in a granny flat in my friend's house, and he's a chef as well. He had his own restaurant, so every Sunday he would cook for us, and I'd be up there watching the way he does things and pick his brains. And the big thing I notice from a lot of these chefs is, again, like they don't necessarily follow a recipe. Like they've worked it out over time through trial and error, and they just punch these things out. They know how it's supposed to smell at each stage. They know how it's supposed to taste. They know roughly how much of each thing to put in. And so that's more or less what I do now. I like making a spaghetti bolognese, and it's probably not the traditional thing, but it's fucking good. And I don't follow a set recipe. I just know how much of everything to put in now, and it works out more or less the same every time. So yeah, cooking is just a another outlet for me, another chance to use my hands to create something. So working with your hands, whether it's working with wood, with soil in the kitchen, it connects you to your roots, to your body, to your creativity. And like another thing on that is I'm a musician. I'm not the world's best musician. I've played in bands over the years, but I'm more or less self-taught. Like my parents put us into piano lessons at a really early age, and I got out of it after about 6 months because I fucking hated it. But I started getting into music as I got older. Started getting into punk rock and all of that once I started getting more into skateboarding, and so I talked my parents into getting us a family guitar. But again, like I didn't want to get lessons. I was just like, I'm just going to watch videos. The internet was already a thing by then. So I was like, I'll just find tabs and I'll just learn by ear and learn by playing and just by looking at tabs. I can't read music. I still just play off chord charts or off tabs or again just by ear, but that's still something else that I fucking love doing. I love creating. I love hearing a song and just making my own little version of it, playing it my own little way. So it probably makes me a terrible bandmate, which I'm not going to be a bandmate ever again anyway. But like the idea of playing with somebody else, it would be annoying because I don't want to play the actual version of the song. Like I want to just jam and do it how I enjoy playing it and put my own twist on it. So that's just another element of working with my hands and just reconnecting with something different. So yeah, let's just go back over a few of the little points there. So like, there's obviously for me that like there's that heritage side of it, the woodworking lineage, the gardening tradition in the family and the family meals, and like a funny thing actually going back to the woodworking heritage as well is I never really knew the details of my mum's like extended family. Like I knew, like I'd met some of them, but there's obviously like lots of her cousins that I've never met at all. After I left Taupo, I moved back to New Plymouth, where I grew up. I needed a change. I think I was 25, 26. It was actually where I met Belen. She was living in New Plymouth at the time. So I moved back there. I find a job working as a builder again, and I'm working with this guy called Sean, he's an older guy, and like he's a bit painful, but I also know the game. Like you don't give too much opinion to an older tradesman, because he's been there, done that, he's seen everything, so everything he knows is right, and you just toe the line. So it was very much that kind of thing. But we had to do a job out of town one day, and so it was about an hour and a half drive. So in this drive, like we just sat there talking and just kind of, you kind of have to get to know each other in those kind of situations. So we get talking away, and he's just asking me why I've moved to New Plymouth, and I said I grew up here, and he goes, oh, okay, so what are your parents' names? Because he was about the age of my parents, so he's probably just curious. New Plymouth is a small town, so I tell him my parents' names, and there was like this light bulb moment for him, and he just looks at me and he goes, we're cousins. I go, what the fuck are you talking about? He goes, your mum is my cousin. And so it was just crazy. Then he goes, yeah, no, this whole side of the family, my dad was a carpenter, and my cousin's a carpenter, and my brother's a carpenter. So there was this whole other heritage and whole other lineage of carpentry on the other side of the family that I'd never grown up aware of. So like, I look at that now and I'm like, well, fuck, I kind of had no choice but to fucking work with my hands, didn't I? Like both sides of my family are just full of men that just grew up working with their hands. Back to my little bullet points I had. So we just talked about heritage. Let's talk about the creativity and imperfection. So the rough carpentry, the just fucking jamming in the kitchen, the experimenting in the garden. That's like very much of who I am. I'm not chasing perfection with a lot of these things. I'm just enjoying the moment, enjoying creation, and I think that's like a good sort of way to be. Like not everything has to be perfect for you to sit down and be stoked with it. Like I think it's good to always sort of walk away being like, okay, next time I can work on that a little bit better, rather than just sitting down obsessing on perfection in that moment, and then walking away feeling like you've failed. I think perfection sometimes can be an unhealthy thing to be working towards. And then there's the mental health benefits as well. Like you're grounding yourself when you're doing these things. You're slowing down. You're being present. You're being aware. There's the making over consuming, which it feels good, not always buying something. To be able to say that you've created something, that you've made it with your hands, and our house is very much like that now. Like yeah, like we still buy things. We are still products of this whole consumption era that we live in, but we make a lot of stuff by hand. And if we don't make it by hand, like a lot of the stuff we buy, somebody else has made it by hand. Like this whole handmade thing is just such a beautiful thing to be a part of. I think to keep supporting, and maybe it's the entrepreneur in us that we just love supporting local business, but just having handmade stuff, it's there's a story there. There's a history there. There's my story, but there's also a story I'm completely unaware of. Like the coffee cup I'm drinking out of now is one of Belle's friends has started a pottery company, and it's fucking incredible the stuff that she makes. And so she's made this awesome cup which has a story for me, but there's also the story and the experience she went through while she was making it that I'm completely unaware of. Like this stuff you have has history, and that's a beautiful thing. And then there's the vision, right? There's the vision with everything that I've got going on here. Like one day we want to be growing a big chunk of our food. It's just part of that grizzly lifestyle. Like one day I want to build our house. To say that I put this roof over my family's head all by myself. Obviously, there's certain elements I'm not going to do. Like I don't know if I can be bothered with the plumbing and then the electrical side of it. Like I'm not fucking around with electricity. I mean, plumbing, yeah, you can see when you fucked up plumbing because water goes everywhere, but you can't see when you fucked up with electricity. It's fucking invisible. So I'll leave that up to the people that deal with that every day. But yeah, there's a big. I want to be able to build the vast majority of my house one day as well. Like probably because of the way I grew up. Like I watched him build one, and I grew up in another one that he built before I was born. But like my dad played a part in building the two homes that he's owned, which is fucking awesome. My little brother, he didn't build his house. He's in a second house now, but he renovated the first one. He's renovating the second one, and okay, like he's got tradesmen in to do certain parts of it, but heaps of it, those two have done it themselves. They've sanded out the whole floors. They've painted the house. Anything structural and anything that needs qualifications, somebody else has done that. But like it's such a beautiful thing to say that you're like, okay, I owned this, like, and I bought this piece of shit and I turned it into this really awesome thing. Like that's a cool thing to be able to say that you've done. So let's look into our practical takeaways for this session. So the first thing, let's do something with our hands this week. And I'm not going to say you need to try and do all three of these, but I think everybody's capable of doing at least one of these things. So build, garden, cook, right? Build or upcycle something instead of just throwing something out that you're not into anymore. Just look at it and be like, hey, fuck, maybe if I just buy some sandpaper and just sand back the edges and make it look a little bit more weathered, will that completely change the vibe of it? Can I just, instead of getting somebody in to fix that door handle, can I just find a YouTube video that shows you how to take a door handle off and fix it? Because replacing a door handle is not fucking hard, but a lot of people will pay somebody to do that. Like, have a look around your house. Is there that one cupboard door that's been annoying you? Is there that one door that's a little bit squeaky? Can you have a crack at fixing it yourself? Like, YouTube is a gold mine for finding all of that sort of stuff. So build something, fix something. The other thing is the garden. Maybe you've already got a garden, so just plant something new. Maybe you don't. Plant something. Get a little windowsill herb garden going. Get yourself a cactus. That's where it all started with Belen. Like Belen's garden obsession is with actually growing and planting stuff is a lot older than mine. She's been buying cactuses and little decorative plants for around the house for fucking years, and that's That's been a beautiful thing, just having green all through the house. So go out and do something like that. Get out on Marketplace and pick up a cactus off somebody for fucking $5. Like, they don't need a whole lot of maintenance. And then as well, cook something. Make a meal from scratch. Improvise instead of following a recipe, but just make something a little bit different. Like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, they've all got these crazy little recipe ideas you can follow. So yeah, follow a recipe or just make something up from scratch, but cook something this week. You don't have to be a carpenter or a chef. Just pick a way to create instead of consuming this week. Pick up that dusty old guitar you've got hidden in the back cupboard. Just create something this week. That's my challenge and my takeaway for you from this episode. So what's one thing you've built, grown, or cooked lately? Doesn't matter how small. I'd love to hear it and maybe share it in future campfire sessions. Working with your hands isn't about perfection. It's about connection to family, to nature, to your own creativity, whether it's wood, soil, or food. Maybe it's a piece of artwork. Maybe it's music. It's how we remember what it means to create instead of just consuming. Stay strong, stay balanced, stay connected. That's the Grizzly way.